So I've been going through a process of updating my equipment in my studio and also looking forward to what I'll be using for gigs in the coming months and years. I think I'm reasonably well equipped in my studio, but I had to make some upgrades in my computer and had to get some new plugins. So I've been looking at good piano sounds, stuff like that. And I think I found what I need for the studio, but for live, I was just looking at not really upgrading, but updating in a sense. I've been traveling for a good 6 or 7 years now with a Nord Electro and the Juno DI, which is over here. But I've been keen to see what's new out there. I'm very impressed with what I've seen of the new Yamaha MODX M series. And I'm thinking that may be a good replacement, almost a one-stop shop. A single keyboard, one size fits all for gigs going forward. And so I began experimenting with all the different things available before I spent any money. And then I suddenly thought it would be good to check out how the old Juno G, which I was gifted with recently and which I had to fix, sounds compared to more modern instruments, compared to all the VST pianos I've been trying out, compared to the Nord. And I thought a good way to check it out would be to do an A-B comparison between the DI, which is a slightly newer machine, and the old Juno G. The DI, I think, came around 2012, 2010, 2012. The Juno G was out in 2005 or 2006. I was just intrigued because I discovered there are a lot of common patches on both machines, sounds with the same patch names. And I thought, let me check how they compare with each other. And that's really what this video is about. And for all of you guys who maybe still own a DI or a G, you might find this video helpful. So let's jump in. There's a great patch available on both keyboards with the same name under the world music section called Pat Is Away. It's kind of a new agey sitar-y kind of sound. Nice touch response on the sound. Very hard to distinguish the difference between them. Another patch with the same name that I found on both keyboards was from the world music group called Lost Paradise. We played on the Juno DI. Nice spacey, new agey world sound. When we play the same patch on the Juno G, there are additional artifacts in the sound, almost like a little sort of echoey, crickety sound. Pianos. The newer Juno DI has a few more preset pianos than the older Juno G. I couldn't quite match up the patches exactly, but in experimenting I came up with the patch number 6 on the DI called Rich Grand, and the basic user number 1 patch on the Juno G called Juno G Grand. And they're very similar. I did notice a few interesting differences. And this is where it gets quite interesting. I'm not sure if this is it, but it's almost as if the quality of the samples in the newer DI are bigger and better, which would be understandable for it because it's newer. However, when you play the Juno G, it just seems to be a lot warmer and fuller. So it could be that they're different samples, and unfortunately I couldn't find exact copies. But here's the thing, it's almost like the preamps in the Juno G may be slightly better, just has more presence and energy and power and warmth. But when it comes to the samples, when you play a very high note on the Juno G, it's very plinky, very plastic. But the same high notes on the Juno DI have got that more authentic wooden, rich wooden knock in the sound. So in a way one could say that for the top octave or two on the DI, the piano sounds a lot more authentic. But in the mid-range and the lower range, the Juno G has more warmth and presence. It's almost like if you could have a mixture of the two, you'd have the best of both worlds. Here I'm comparing the JD800 digital piano patches, much brighter, more sort of pop-oriented sounds. Again, the Juno DI brighter but thinner, and the Juno G sort of warmer and fatter. I guess with sounds like this, it really comes down to application and personal taste. I have recognized, especially with regard to Roland keyboards, is that although they may sound a little bit thin and bright on their own, on stage, in a band with other instruments, the brightness almost helps them cut through the mix way better. A lot of the other pianos, they sound warm and rich on their own, but once you're on stage with the band, unless you EQ them like crazy, they kind of get all muddied up and missing in the mix. When it comes to electric pianos on these two boards, it's quite subjective. I couldn't find a lot of exact matches. They're both good. They both do the Rhodes, and DX7 sounds pretty well. And it all depends what kind of sound you like, whether you want those stony phased Rhodeses or the tremolo Rhodes or the more vintage sounds. But they both deliver a good selection. When it comes to electric pianos, I think I prefer the DI to the G. It just seems to have a bit more fatness, a bit more of attack, and maybe a bit more authenticity. The Juno G just seemed a bit tame when it came to electric pianos. So what's the verdict? I'm not sure there is one. Call me undecided. The Juno G is impressive for its age. I think in terms of a good, solid acoustic piano for accompanying and playing jazz and fusion, the Juno G actually has a bit more warmth and strength to its sound. When it comes to electric pianos, I think the DI shone a bit better. They're very similar. The reason I've done this experiment in the first place is part of my evaluation going forward into updating my studio. I have access to a Nord piano. I have access to very good Native Instruments VST plugins in the studio. But for live, I'm looking at where to go from here. I normally take a Nord and the DI with me to gigs. I'm thinking maybe of the new Yamaha MODX M6 or 7 as a one-stop shop keyboard for live. And that got me trying to work out what really works for pianos and organs and strings and everything in one box. And I have to admit that they all will get the job done if you know how to play them and how to find the sounds on them. I think in the studio I probably would revert to the good VST piano plugins, and possibly I'll use the Nord there because it is just one notch above all of these. So I have both these boards. I've owned my Juno DI for some 14 odd years now. I rehabilitated this Juno G, which was given to me a few months back. I don't need them all, but I can see no reason to have to get rid of one of them because I think they'll both work in different contexts. And maybe down the line, when I've added more keyboards to my collection, I might want to then consolidate and pay it forward and move one of them on to somebody who could make better use of it than me.